and welcome to a new episode of the Windhorse Publications podcast. It's been a while since our last episode, as we've been very busy doing reconfiguring of the team and getting new people on board. My name is Dama Mega, and I used to be the publishing director here at Windhorse Publications, and I'm very pleased to be back to do this podcast episode. And in particular, I'm very pleased to be speaking with Dhirananda and Virya Bodhi, two Swedish order members who have recently done an English translation of their book on the Lojong slogans, the mind training slogans. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. So I'm very pleased to be here today with the two authors of a book recently published by Windhorse Publications, which is Train Your Mind and Tibetan Exercises in Wisdom and Compassion. Here it is. And I'm here with the two authors, Dhirananda and Virya Bodhi, who originally wrote this book in Swedish. And Windhorse Publications recently worked with Virya Bodhi on the English translation of it, and is now published for the first time in an English edition. So I'm very pleased to see you both here today. Maybe you can just say hello.
Yes, hello.
You start. Yes, hello.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, well, why don't I ask you to introduce yourselves? Maybe introduce yourselves in terms of your Dharma life, and also maybe a little bit where you first came into contact with the teachings that this book is about, the Lojong or mind training teachings. And maybe, Dhirananda, could you go first?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I discovered Buddhism in my early 20s. Initially, I was most drawn towards Zen Buddhism, reading books about Zen. And at one point, reading one of those books, I had some kind of epiphany or revelation or whatever. I felt very strongly that I had found a truth about life in a deep sense. And that early experience has stayed with me ever since, really. Sometime after that initial epiphany, I started to look for other Buddhists, which wasn't that easy in the early 80s. But finally, I encountered Sona, an English member of Triratna, or Western Buddhist Order, as it was called then, who had come to Stockholm in order to start a Buddhist center. I was quickly involved with activities led by Sona and was ordained myself in 1982 when I was given my name, Dhirananda, which means bliss of being firm and wise. And this was 43 years ago, quite long ago. Since then, I have helped to establish Triratna in Stockholm and Sweden. While training to become a medical doctor and later practicing as a GP. Now I'm retired. I live with my partner. I have a son and a daughter who are now grown up, and as well as my partner's two daughters and a granddaughter as a sort of bonus. And during summertime, we spend as much time as we can in our country house north of Stockholm. Sangharakshita's presentation of the Dharma has been fundamental to my own understanding of Buddhism. But my interest in Lojong was sparked much later. In fact, not until the summer 2018, I was on a Nordic order retreat with Vesantara, a member of the order I actually got in contact with 1982. He was part of the team during my own ordination retreat. On this retreat, Vesantara introduced us to the teachings of Atisha, Tonglen meditation, and to Lojong. And an important reason why I took so much to the Lojong teachings and Tonglen at that particular time, I think, was because I was going through a difficult period in my life. Several of my loved ones were seriously ill. A few years earlier, my partner had been diagnosed with breast cancer and gone through a difficult treatment, which luckily was successful, but it was certainly stressful and difficult also for me. At about the same time, both my parents, one after the other, developed Alzheimer's disease and eventually passed away. So that was quite a tough time for me. As a practicing GP, I was used to dealing with illness and death, but I hadn't really encountered personal suffering to that extent before. So what appealed to me about Lojong and Tonglen was the emphasis on how to face difficulties in life as a means of personal growth and awakening. So that's a little bit about my background.
It also sounds like you've had a very full life. I mean, one of the things you say in the book is that it's the kind of practice that you don't have to spend hours on meditation. You just have to bear these slogans and the truths of them and the provocation of them in mind in your life. So with family and extended family and work. Sounds like a...
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular during that period when I also had to take care of my parents. Absolutely, that was one factor.
Thank you. Yeah. And Virya.
Yes. Well, I was born in the south of Sweden and grew up there, and that's where I also came into contact with the Dharma. First, I started to meditate with TM, Transcendental Meditation, but a few years later, I came in contact with Buddhist meditation. It was actually through a friend of ours, a common friend of ours, who was also a friend of Sona. So it was the early 80s. And then I did read whatever there was in libraries at that time, early 80s. And then in 82, I visited Stockholm when Dhirananda actually was on his ordination course and at the Stockholm Buddhist Center. And so I attended a class there and did a Metta Bhavana and a sevenfold puja the first time. And yes, so even earlier, I did have a strong response to the Dharma and felt it was true in some way. And then when I came in touch with Sona and the order and the movement, I felt a resonance with that. It was a little later, 85, when I went on a summer retreat, which actually Dhirananda led, supported by Sona, where I felt I came home. So I had a spiritual practice with meditation before, but I missed spiritual friends. So then, so I lived in the south of Sweden. So I moved up to Stockholm. Let's see, in that order. And then, or was it before? Yes, I spent a few months at the London Buddhist Center. And then I moved to Stockholm and eventually asked for ordination and moved to England. And I was 10 years in Croydon, Rivendell Retreat Center. So I have many English friends in the order and movement. And came back to Sweden in 97. And in a way, I took over after, I helped continue to establish the Stockholm Buddhist Center and Triratna in Stockholm since then. And quite early on, I started Bodhi Förlaget, Bodhi Publishing in Swedish. So started publishing and translating Bhante's books and others into Swedish.
So it's very, very nice for us at Windhorse. Obviously, I knew you before this book because you do all of the Swedish translators and in these translations. And in fact, you are coordinating the translation board that supports a whole lot of translators all across the world in multiple languages to be publishing these books. So it's really nice to see you in these two aspects.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what I help out at the Buddhist Center and the retreat center we have, Dharmagiri, and I work one day a week for ITTB, the International Triratna Translations Board.
Mm.
Yep.
Great. And Lojong and Tonglen specifically?
Yes, the first time it came in the early 2000s when I attended a few retreats at Pamaloka, which Pamavadra he led on the theme, one retreat, and then also on a Nordic order retreat, both Sona and Mahamati came and led study on the 8 verses of mind training. So that it came in then and sort of was there in the background, but then I picked it up seriously now when Dhirananda wrote the book or the text, so it sort of came back in, and I'm very attracted to it, I must say.
So maybe it would be good to go back to basics and explain what Lojong and Tonglen are, the two possibly unfamiliar words to the people who are listening to this. Maybe you could start, Dhirananda. What's Lojong?
If I start with Lojong and what Lojong is.
Is Lojong the correct way to say it in Tibetan or in Swedish or in...
What do you say?
I've always said Lojong, but that may well be incorrect. Lojong.
Sounds a little bit sort of English.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
Okay. Okay. What's Lojong in your?
Lojong. It consists of 59 slogans or sentences that, in a clever way, shows us how to live our lives and relate to others from an attitude of wise compassion. So Lojong springs from the medieval Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, but is really universal in its message and could be read and appreciated regardless of religious and cultural background. It's quite practical and down to earth, with teachings that could be appreciated by peasants and nomads in the 11th and 12th century Tibet. Something which reflects in some of the slogans, like don't put a burden of a zoo on an ox. A zoo is this hybrid between the yak and the domestic cattle, and is apparently a very strong animal, stronger than an ox, in fact. And that particular period in Tibet was also rather violent and unstable, and that also reflects in slogans like "Don't ambush others," and "When the world is filled with evil, transform all unfavorable conditions into means of awakening." So it has that sort of character. But the fact that the teachings of Lojong are so practical and down to earth and so easily accessible, most of them at least, make them, I think, very suitable for us in our time. This is also a time of uncertainty with several global threats hanging over us. Threats that are urgent. We don't know how much time we have left. So a great thing with Lojong is, as we have touched on, is that it can be practiced under all circumstances, no matter what the demands of life are and how busy we are. We can always reflect on one of the slogans and draw strength and inspiration from them. So that's, I don't know, do you want to explain what Tonglen is?
Yes, I can add another angle maybe. As Dhirananda said, it's very concrete and down to earth. And this morning I was thinking it's a very concrete expression of the bodhisattva ideal, or the altruistic dimension of Dharma practice. So it's a way of working and transforming one's mind from the base, and sort of overcoming and working on one's self-obsession or self-centeredness, and overcoming that. But it's also working on your negative mental states and developing positive mental states, as well as bodhicitta, of course. So it's a very concrete. Many of these slogans, they sort of hit. Oh, I do that. Yes, I can work on that, and So that's what I'd say. Yeah.
I mean, it's very striking how relational even those slogans you've already mentioned are. They're not just about yourself. I mean, I think that one of the dangers of contemporary, maybe Western-y style Buddhist practice is it's very much about like how you feel or how you work with, how you develop more positivity or something. But this is, you can, the Sangha dimension or the relationship, or how fundamentally relational wisdom is so strong in this. It's so obviously about how we relate to other people. That's something that I find really attractive about these slogans. They're not just like, oh, do this and you'll feel better, or do this and you'll have less suffering. It's like, this is a wise way to be in the world with others. I like that.
Yeah.
So what's the relationship between Lojong and Tonglen?
Okay. Well, Tonglen is sort of fundamental to Lojong in the sense that some of the slogans actually refer to Tonglen meditation, but the spirit of Lojong is underlined by the Tonglen practice, where you Tonglen is also quite a simple practice in a way, immediate, intuitive. You take in suffering, your own suffering and other people's suffering, acknowledge it, and then you give out relief, comfort, and both to yourself and to others who are suffering. And the process of receiving and giving out, which is what Tonglen actually means literally, is riding on the breath. So the breath is sort of fundamental to the practice.
Which means a kind of embodied presence as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the breath, keeping the attachment or connection to the body.
Yes. Would you like to add something here, David?
Yes, well, I see a connection with the Metta Bhavana, and maybe particularly the Karuna Bhavana. So the development of loving kindness or compassion in terms of Karuna. So you actively turn towards suffering, both your own, as Thirananda said, and others, of course. But you start with your own. One slogan is, you start the process with yourself. I do find it quite challenging sometimes, yes. So there might be a danger of taking it too literally, that you're breathing in. So you're imagining, it's an imaginative practice where you imagine you're breathing in. You can't literally take on people's suffering. You can't take it away from people. But you can really, through the practice, that's what I think, you can really work with your relationship to suffering and imagine it's transforming. And of course, it can have some magical sort of effect or direct effect as well. Right. But you're not concerned with that. You don't. Bit like metta, you don't get hooked up on having to have it in effect, because that can be a bit tricky. Yeah.
Well, the effect on your mind will be definite.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, you don't think about the effect of others. If it has an effect on others, well, that's great, yeah. But you shouldn't bother too much about that.
And it's one of the great things in this book, which is quite a short little book. It's pithy. I mean, when we start looking a little bit more at some of these slogans that are pithy, you'll see that a small book can pack quite a punch. There are also some audio recordings that you can get from the Windhorse Publications website that Virya Bodhi has recorded that go along with the book, some of which are led meditations and Tonglen meditations, and others are sort of preparations for doing that meditation. So that's great. I mean, the language of these slogans is so fantastic, isn't it? Don't put the burden of a zo on an ox, or, it's very evocative language. And there are 59 of them. So obviously we can't look at the whole of the book, but I've asked both of you to choose one slogan that you feel is kind of relevant or that you particularly like at the moment. So it'd be great to hear a little bit more about the slogans in that way.
Shall I start? Yes. Well, I've chosen slogan 51 at this crucial time. Practice the essentials. Saying a bit about that already, it feels like this is a crucial time in history for all of us. But in my own life, I certainly feel an urgency to make the most of the time I have left and look for ways to practice which is simple and direct. I try to catch myself whenever I become too self-centered and remind myself that wise compassion is what is the most essential. And in relation to others, compassion always starts, I find, with listening, learning to listen to others, listen to other people's views and perspectives, other people's difficulties and suffering. I think in the past I've been a little bit too preoccupied with abstract thoughts and ideas. I'm less interested in that nowadays and concentrate on that which is more immediate and direct and try to see how I best can help others.
So it's sort of a reminder of the preciousness of the time that we have and the capacities that we have, a kind of call to action to use that well.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, dear Amanda. Everybody?
Yeah. And me, yes. Well, I chose slogan number 12, which is blame it all on the one culprit. Sometimes it's translated as drive all blame into one. And blame it all on the one culprit. That's the title of this. That's the Swedish title of the book. And some of my Swedish friends have said, this Swedish title is better. It was a bit bold and a bit courageous of us to choose that, but people really liked it. It's the same subtitle, but the main title is like that. So I chose that because, well, it's also very immediate, and we have a very strong tendency to want to blame others or outside conditions for our own suffering, or when things go wrong, or when people don't do what we want them to do, and all that. So, yes, I do find that very helpful. I had an occasion, a story of that. I led a retreat earlier on the wisdom theme, which is another book we just published, was Wisdom Beyond Words in Swedish. So I led this retreat with Lojong, a friend of mine. And one afternoon, I just got into my head, I should lead a certain meditation, a sort of follow-on her teaching in the morning. And in the end, it wasn't appropriate at the time, but I just pushed on. And then she was a bit upset and, well, she felt a bit criticized. It wasn't my intention at all. But then in our team meeting in the evening, she told me about it. And I had a restless night. I was really concerned about that. And the following morning, I apologized. And I just, it wasn't my intention, but I can apologize. So it was, so that sentence or that slogan sort of helps me to come back to myself. What's my responsibility? And also to be more ready to just say, well, not just blame me, but to take the responsibility. And sometimes it may not matter too much if it's not 100% me. And it also helps me to sort of look at, so what is going on? What do I add to the story? What do I bring? What do the other person bring? And then, but I do find it quite, a bit revolutionary, really. You just turn, well, oh no, I'm sorry. And it seems like so many problems comes from pride and sticking to your guns and your own view. So I think if we had a bit more of that attitude, it would be very helpful. Being more ready to just admit mistakes, admit, that was a bit insensitive of me, or I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great to have an example like that. It's so concrete, isn't it? I can imagine I get caught up with my enthusiasms for things and I sort of lose touch with what's actually going on around. That's so easy to do, isn't it? I think you've got a great idea and everybody's slightly different. I think it's an interesting thing overall with Lojong and this whole area. I think there's something about... like anybody obviously can have pride and ignorance. We all have pride and ignorance. But some of us are taught to sort of do too much and maybe take too much responsibility for things. And some people are perhaps taught to not take enough responsibility. I think that sometimes that may be generational, it can be gendered. So I think there's all of these things. I suppose the question is this true? Is this useful for everybody all the time? These teachings and Tonglen practice. That's why I'm sort of stepping back a little bit and going like in that situation, like that's a great example. But for people who don't look after themselves very well, or who tend to take on have a lot of shame or something like that, how would that slogan help someone in that context? When they're not coming from pride, they're actually coming from a kind of unconfidence or self-hatred or something like that.
Well, I think that Lojong actually covers that also to some extent. I'm thinking about the first starts with the preparations. I think we mentioned that you actually need to prepare yourself for the actual teaching of Lojong, and that includes sort of building up a reasonably robust self-esteem, and also doing some basic meditation, like mindfulness of breathing and metta bhavana. Maybe you shouldn't start with Tonglen, actually. You need to do some preparations and some psychological work, perhaps also. Work on your relationships and other things. So, as with all Buddhist teachings, it is best not to practice on your own. It's good to have a practicing community, other people to relate to and who can help and guide you. So we are emphasizing that also, in the book.
Yeah. I think also the book is written in a very kind way. So I've had, so with a very kind attitude. Dhyananda, wrote the first text, and then I added the reflections and meditations. But I certainly feel that, both of us, but Dhyananda's text is very, very kind and sort of gentle, but not sort of holding back, also challenging. But I've had some comments on that people love it because of the attitude they find in it too.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that's, and the kindness also, but also very, very clear explanations of some quite complex concepts in ways that are just very easy to get hold of, even concepts like emptiness or these things, very, very kind of practical and notice your experience and prepare and ground. So it's great, isn't it? You've got both really strong challenges in these slogans. You know, they're asking you to really take account of what you're doing and notice and take responsibility for what you're doing. So it's really strong in that sense. But as you say, also very gentle and very kind in its approach. I was thinking, I think the one I have enjoyed different ones at different times, but I think the one that I'm enjoying most at the moment, or like finding most helpful at the moment, is don't be so predictable.
Yes, some of them are quite funny in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, in a sense, we all get trapped by our own habits. So it's an invitation to much greater creativity and experimentation and taking risks and trying out new things and surprising yourself and others. So I think that would be my favorite one at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I would be interested, though, maybe it's a bit more on that theme. What kinds of things can happen, whether those are fruits or difficulties or obstacles that can happen if you were to offer some advice to people who are very inspired by this kind of practice and want to start using it or working with it themselves?
Well, there is a chapter on how was that to some extent measuring the effects of our practice. I think that is very interesting and unusual, I would say, from Dharma teachings. That they are sort of signposts or clues that you can use to measure, am I actually making progress? Am I becoming more wiser and more compassionate? But there are also obvious warnings that one shouldn't expect too much to see results or rewards. And the last one, I mean, don't expect applause. That kind of mentality is warned against.
So that's a sort of real purification of intention, isn't it? Like, why are you doing this?
And obstacles. Of course, many obstacles. And again, a lot of the slogans actually address obstacles and difficulties. I think that one obvious obstacle to Dharma practice in general is lack of confidence. You don't actually have confidence in the fact that you can practice wisdom and compassion and express that. Buddhism in general has a very good name in the West, but I think a lot of people think that it's not for them, it's for others. It's great that there are Buddhists who meditate and become enlightened and so forth, but it's not for them. It's too difficult. They see it's unattainable. Again, I think Lojong helps us to bring it down to earth, to emphasize all the pitfalls and all the shortcomings, and the fact that it is a training, it's mind training, and it's okay to be a beginner, of course. And when you're a beginner, you make a lot of mistakes, and the important thing is that you learn from your mistakes.
Should I say something as well?
Yeah.
Well, I think I was talking about the rewards with my examples there a bit, that you learn to sit a bit loose to yourself and my view, but also, discover maybe that the strength of views and others' views. So it's not like you just put yourself down like a doormat and just let other people have their way. You also need to reflect also what's the most important. So that's what I thought recently also. You need to, be open to other people's views, but also not just drop your own views. So you need to investigate them too. What are helpful views, and not be afraid of challenge too. So obstacles or problems. Well, I think we talked about it. In the importance of having a healthy self-regard and metta. Yeah. So I also thought, many of the sentences. They contain so much Dharma, and just straightforward Dharma, which goes back to the main or mainstream Buddhist tradition. And in some ways, I find it a very useful reminder. So they always remember this or do that, and so it just brings in the whole teaching into these slogans of this training. So it is a very comprehensive sort of training as well, which connects to so many, maybe the whole Buddhist path or practice.
So we're going to wrap up in a sec, but I'm wondering what you hope this book will bring into being or contribute now in its first translated edition. But maybe it's been translated into other languages as well, but now in English.
Well, it's very exciting to have a broader audience and we look forward to the response from English readers. Yes, of course, we hope that we will contribute something with this book, but mainly I think it's people practicing the Dharma, practicing Lojong, who will have an influence on. Yeah,
I agree. And I was recently on retreat in England, and with a few many friends, and several people said, well, they thought we need more Lojong in the Triratna movement and order, and in the sense that it does, as we've talked about, help you to let go of your own self-clinging in a very concrete way, and I think it in that way it could create harmony. Could be a sort of what do you call it? A means for harmony, or it could promote harmony and also just strengthen our Dharma practice, our commitment to Dharma practice. Yeah. So I think somebody wrote it's a gem of a book. So I think people will find it, and it's small and handy, but it contains so much, and I think many people will enjoy it. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much. I'm very grateful for you both doing this in your second language. Doing a live podcast interview in a second language is not so easy. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've really enjoyed reading the book a few times now. Again, we were working on it a while ago, but then it was work, and now I've just been able to read it a bit more, I suppose, for myself. And the two dimensions of the book, Dhirananda, your translation and just explanation of the slogans and drawing out the implications of each one, or the meaning and the implications of each one. And then Viryabodhi, these practical exercises for reflecting on or engaging with or practicing them. I think it's a great little handbook. In fact, I'd probably say you don't need that many Dharma books, do you, really? But this is one that you could have and put it in your back pocket, and would really provide a lot of energy and resource for your practice for many years. So I'm hoping a lot of people respond to it and read it and practice in these ways. It'd be fantastic.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah. So thank you both very much. And hopefully we'll see you around at bookshops, or your book at bookshops, or in future retreats. That I'm sure that there will be more retreats that will be based on Lojong now that we have a few more resources for it in circulation. So that'll be fantastic. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Windhorse Publications is part of the Triratna Buddhist community, and this podcast is sponsored by Future Dharma Fund, a Buddhist fundraising charity which helps fund Dharma projects across the world, including ours. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider donating to them to help them fund current and future projects like ours. You can find out more about Windhorse Publications by going to our website.